Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk about one of these myths that is very pervasive in the training world, and particularly the bodybuilding world, because so much of that has emerged from magazines, not from sports physiology. But it's a myth that is partially true, and oftentimes that is the case with a myth. The reason they seem to permeate is because there is a little degree of truth to it. It's just that the full truth of it isn't understood in the community. And that is the idea that you need to shock a muscle to get it to grow. Now, this is true to the extent that when you reach a certain threshold in training, adaptations become very difficult to make, and your body adapts very, very quickly to training stimulus and stops adapting sometimes. And it's true for the novice in the sense that if you do not progress on every single workout, you probably are not growing very effectively at that point. But you don't need to do bizarre things to shock a muscle like change exercises. In fact, I would say, particularly for someone less than about 3 years of training, changing exercises is probably the worst thing you could do, because it slows down adaptation and progression to that exercise. You end up having less performance for a short period of time, and you cut down your growth window. That's a bad thing. You want to be doing the same exercises, at least for your primary builders, as often as possible, and for as long as possible, so that you can keep making progress on those, so that you can increase workload as you get better at them. Anyone in the first year or two of lifting, the only thing you really need to do to shock a muscle is to add weight to the bar, or add reps. And what I mean there is that if you can squat 185 pounds, which is something like 75 kilos for people who don't know pounds, and you add 5 pounds or 2 kilos to the bar for the same 5 reps, you've effectively shocked the muscles. You have subjected them to a new training stress, and your body will have to adapt, and that adaptation will be both neurological and thickening of the muscle fibers. Or if you were to do 6 reps, you've now created more workload with the same amount of mechanical tension, so you're getting the same effect. And it's something that people lose sight of. A novice, that is really all you need to do. Now, when you get past around the 2-year mark, it becomes a different story. And what you find is that is where we start running into a problem that we call the law of adaptations in exercise science. And the problem there is that you find with advanced lifters is that after about 3 weeks of the same stimulus, their body will kind of stop adapting. And you will have to change something in order to stimulate new adaptations. And we've known this for 50 or 60 years in sports science. And so what we will do with that is oftentimes this is how classic periodization was developed. And for example, what you may do with a classic periodization for a very advanced lifter who will struggle to increase workload at any appreciable rate, you will oftentimes run them in 3-week microcycles and have, say, a 12-week program. And what you will do is that you might, for each 3-week block, you will have them work in a different rep range, a different type of workload, and then change it every 3 weeks, so that you'll run 4 blocks, and then hopefully when you restart the cycle at 12 weeks, they are now stronger in each block again. And it might be a change in weight in that 3-week, or it might be a change in volume. So for example, you might have them running 10 rep sets, and yes, they will have power lifters, strength athletes, football players doing 10 rep sets. This is pretty common. And they might try to increase weight over that 3 weeks, or they might just increase volume. They might do 3 sets of 10 on their big lifts, 4 sets of 10, and then 5 sets of 10 the 3rd week. Then the next week they'll go to 8 rep sets for the 3-week blocks, and they might repeat the same sort of thing to where they increase volume. If they're not increasing weight, they'll drop to 5 reps for the next microcycle, and then doubles and triples for the final one to train absolute strength and power. And then restart it over, because what will happen is that you're training different performance elements. And while they will detrain to some extent when they're not trained, you will keep some of them, and you will see those performance elements overlap, and over time they can progress. But they don't necessarily do anything bizarre like add a bunch of rest pause training or forced reps or forced negatives. They simply change the workload and the performance elements they're training on the same lifts: the squat, the deadlift, the overhead press, power cleans, whatever they happen to be doing. They don't make dramatic changes in the program other than they change the workload and the training elements that they are trying to train. But again, people in their first year or two of lifting who have not built a very solid foundation, who are not already very big and strong already for their structure and potential, don't need to worry about those sort of things. You guys simply need to focus on adding weight to the bar or adding reps. Every time you go in the gym, if you stall, reduce the weight a little bit, and ramp it back up, which is what my novice program has people do. And it's really that simple. That is all it takes, because that is what shocking the muscle actually is. And it's the whole idea of coming up with these bizarre things that bodybuilders have come up with is because they don't study exercise science. They don't understand that in the sports world, this has been known for generations, and we have methods that are pre-planned and programmed methods to deal with it ahead of time, rather than waiting until you stall and trying something random that isn't planned out. And so for anyone interested in that, you guys can go read some basic books on training programming and periodization. And people always ask me to give some. Super training and practical programming are probably really good starting reads for someone who wants to know the basics on this. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot first.